I am becoming convinced of the opinion that Warner Brothers believes DC has only ever published 4 comics. Batman The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One, Batman The Long Halloween, and The Death of Superman. This is important later. When we got that, hey, we only shot 15 minutes of the film before COVID shut us down, but here's 3 of them, trailer from DC Fandom a couple of years back, I thought everything looked pretty good. But it was early days and there wasn't enough to get excited about just yet. When the first trailer got released, a nasty feeling of deja vu started creeping in. I mean, hadn't we seen this? Wasn't this just Christopher Nolan, only with a different color palette and even less lighting? The feeling persisted all the way up to the release. To be completely honest, we went and saw this more out of curiosity, a feeling of fanboy obligation, and the fear of having the film ruined via internet spoilers. After a very long 3 hours, I have to say that the film is good. It's well made, it's well acted, everything looks great, except for that damn mask, but we'll get to that. I honestly think it's a well-crafted film and the filmmakers should be proud of themselves. But I didn't like it.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
The story is set a couple of years into Batman's career. The cops in the city don't seem to like or trust him very much, but they do have a bat signal. Jim Gordon trusts him enough to bring him in on cases, but he still seems to be spending most of his time beating the living shit out of people he doesn't like. But then important people start dying, and an internet edgelord wearing a gimp mask and calling himself the Riddler starts taking credit and dropping clues. Batman needs to start using his developing detective skills to figure out what's going on, and gets dropped into a giant conspiracy involving most of Gotham's elite, politicians, and crime lords. Yeah, it's basically the Long Halloween with all the elements and none of the cameos of Hush dropped in, for the comically educated amongst you. Hell, when he was finally unmasked, I was fully expecting the Riddler to reveal his name was Tommy Elliot instead of Edward Nygma. Actually, I don't think they ever wind up using the Nygma name. Every time they try to move Batman another few steps closer to reality, it just seems to point out how ridiculous the concept is. I will give them credit though, because they lent into that for aspects of this. You get a version of Batman who is exactly how a rich, privileged white kid who has been sheltered from the world for most of his life would act. He is something of an entitled dick. He's also being played very young, so he hasn't seemed to have had the lessons of there's more to this world than just you hit him like a batarang out of the dark just yet. Watching this movie, anyone who went through a goth period in their teens would be getting a little bit triggered. That said, Pattison does a great job portraying this version of Batman. He's completely convinced of his own self-righteousness, but also looks slightly uncomfortable walking around in the suit in front of a room full of cops. Pattison does go through a character arc where he realizes that the world isn't black and white like we wish it would be. The entire supporting cast also do great jobs. Zoe Kravitz, who has been putting in some seriously solid performances of late, does a great turn as a street-smart but emotionally damaged version of Selena Kyle. I hesitate to call her Catwoman. This is not Anne Hathaway's socialite thief or Michelle Pfeiffer's whatever the hell that was. This is a woman with a plan and a secret, who has developed the skills needed to pull off both. Her comic book alias is never used, but it felt like the film forgot halfway through, when she starts name-dropping and making cat puns. Selena seems to be the main viewpoint for the downtrodden in this film, going so far as to literally call out the rich white men who are the source and cause of all the trouble in the film. Then there's Jim Gordon, played by Westworld's Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey is just excellent in everything he does, and he makes a great Jim Gordon. But there never seems to be any reason why he trusts and sticks his neck out for this guy in the strange outfit, which leads to certain moments of the story just feeling weird and unbelievable. Colin Farrell's Penguin performance is incredible, as there is no trace of Colin Farrell in that character whatsoever. He completely disappears inside the character. Andy Serkis is underutilized as a world-weary Alfred. John Turturro is perfect as crime boss Carmen Infantino, with a great mix of both sleazy and sinister. Everybody is great. I honestly can't pick out a single performance in this film that didn't live up to the expectations of the script. My one gripe is the very obvious spectrum coding of Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler. When are we going to get over this bullshit of autism equals evil? It's tough not to compare the film to its very obvious inspirations. If you put a bat suit on Brad Pitt in Seven, you'd pretty much have this film. It's nice to see Batman using his detective skills for a change, although the mystery itself doesn't seem worthy of the time and thought processes put into it. You almost find yourself wanting to yell at the screen the obvious answers to the Riddler's puzzles that somehow eludes the characters on screen. The action scenes are done really well, including a great Batmobile chase, which leaves that idiotic chase scene in Batman v Superman for dead. Speaking of Batmobiles, they somehow managed to design a vehicle that was both epic and so down to earth, it made the Dark Knight's Tumbler look as fanciful and unrealistic as the Burton Mobile from 1989. Speaking of design, the film looks great. Gothic and grimy, with this glorious separation between the worlds of Bruce Wayne and the dirty streets of the Batman. That would also be a really great suit if it wasn't for that damn mask. It really does look like bad cosplay, which can be a bit off-putting considering how often we see it in close-up. And the less said about Catwoman's balaclava, the better. Now, I keep praising this film because it's well done, but I'm also extraordinarily disappointed in it. It felt like they wanted to do something different but chickened out at the last minute. The film actively tries to address some of the more inexplicable aspects of the Batman mythos, but always seems to shy away when the opportunity to really go into a deep dive comes along. This version of Batman seems one step away from pulling off the cowl, having a good hard look at himself, and finally taking himself to therapy. But then he suddenly remembers that they have to get a franchise out of this and doubles down. And so we get yet another rehash of what we've seen before. And we have seen this before. Just for context, ever since Batman 89, where the world's fascination with the character really seems to have kicked in, we've had the Burton movies, the Schumacher movies, Batman the Animated Series, the new Batman Adventures, Batman Beyond, his appearances in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, The Batman, Batman Brave and the Bold, Beware the Batman, Batman Unlimited, the Harley Quinn series, Batman Begins and the Dark Knight films, the Arkham games, the Injustice games, 26 different animated movies, everything from the Dark Knight Returns and the Long Halloween to team-ups with the Ninja Turtles and Scooby-Doo, Batman v Superman and the abomination that was Justice League, and yes, I am talking about both frickin' versions, Lego Batman, Gotham, now we have The Batman, an offshoot of the Batman set in Arkham, Gotham Knights, and soon we're going to have another animated series in the form of Batman Caped Crusader. That is insane! No other fictional character or licensed property has had that level of multi-medium exposure in such a truncated period of time ever. Maybe what I'm saying is that the world is a little bit done with Batman. Or maybe I'm just done with Batman. Whichever it is, it just makes it really difficult to get into any new interpretation, especially when they just keep on retreading the same ground. And what makes it more disappointing is that Warner Brothers just keeps dragging out its bat-shaped safety blanket when they have over 80 years of characters and stories at their disposal. You know, for a little while there, it looked like we were finally going to get some different stories, utilizing some of these wonderful characters that they've got in their lexicon. But ever since the unforgivable travesty that Zack Snyder inflicted upon us, Warner Brothers has collectively shit their utility belts and gone running back to the sanctity of the Batcave. Now we have the return of Michael Keaton's Batman in the Flash movie, which I am looking forward to, don't get me wrong. Nostalgia has quite a hold over me. And a new Batgirl film coming out that also stars Michael Keaton. And, of course, there will be the inevitable sequel to this. Director Matt Reeves has already expressed an interest in doing a story featuring Mr. Freeze, which inevitably means that we're going to get yet another retelling of the Heart of Ice story. which was an original take on the character, created by Paul Dini and beautifully executed for the animated series. And even that has already been bastardized for the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of the character. Not cool. At the end of the day, The Batman is a good film, but I didn't like it because it could have been better. They could have actually done something original with the character and the mythos. But like a bat flying through the moonless night sky, all we ever get is an echo.